The game looks worse. I think the most obvious one is if we look at the grass here, if we look at the foliage, so you can clearly see that there's like a bunch of grass around this parking bench here. This grass is completely removed here. There's nothing here. It's all gone. And yeah, once again, I would say there's also a worse ambient occlusion here. So we can see that the pot in the background here next to the stairs, there are some shadows here that actually make this feel a little bit more natural. Completely gone. It actually looks worse here. Like it's right up above me. It just looks weird. It looks more fake in the new version here. This looks like an Instagram filter to me. So if you look at some of the darker areas here, all of the lower blacks here, all of this is this pink magenta. So I am about a day late on the latest TDU Solar Crown announcements. It's because of something called having a life. But I figured I'd just go over some of the bare basics really briefly. You've probably already seen this on other people's channels. But I do have something more to say on some of the graphical improvements that I haven't really seen anyone talk about. Because to me, it seems like there isn't actually that much of an improvement there at all. I'm also just gonna talk about TDU Solar Crown once again, more in general, that the updates for the next 4 seasons or so have been announced. So all of the update contents were revealed in this 1 hour and 4 minutes presentation, which I just want to point out is a giant waste of time. You could have condensed everything that's said here in a 10-minute video, especially because a large majority of the stuff talked about in this video was them just saying, oh, we can't talk about this yet. We shall more on this later. Okay, why even bring it up then? So instead we have this, which is I guess like a roadmap, a summary of everything that they talked about. So I'm just gonna spare you guys the full 1 hour. To say I'm not impressed would probably be an understatement. So everything we're looking at here of the major additions is content from TDU 2. Maybe even TDU 1. So taxi missions were in both TDU 1 and 2. That's nothing new. Community voted missions depends on what will get picked, but could be something new, could be something interesting. Official Racing Center has been in TDU 2, is also nothing new. And houses is also in TDU 2. So we have nothing new here. We're still catching up with a game from 2011. That was 14 years ago. And that's all we got in store. Now, I will be charitable and admit that the stuff that they do add back into the game, into Solar Crown, seems to be at least a generally better, like enhanced or improved or expanded version of the content that was in either TDU 1 or 2. So, for example, the taxi missions are now a lot more interactive. So, for example, a passenger might care about the outfit you're wearing. So you might need to bring a certain outfit so that you can even pick him up in the first place, or that you maybe get some bonus points or whatever. The passenger might also have certain requests, like lowering the windows, or you might start talking to you and then you need to respond in a way that's nice. It kind of reminds me of Yakuza 5's taxi missions. And you know what? That's super cool. I think making the taxi missions more interactive and making them generally an improvement over what we had before, not just bringing it back the same thing, but actually making it better, is a cool thing. I think that is the way to go. The same thing applies to the houses. So in TDU 2, you could buy various houses, obviously, and you could customize them a little bit. So you had every house that you could buy in TDU 2 was basically already furnished, and then you could basically just change the model of the couch or the texture of the walls and the floor. It wasn't anything super crazy. I think the coolest thing really was that you could put down photographs that you made into the game, like photos you made with the photo mode in the game. You could actually put on the wall as an actual photo that other people could see. That was the coolest thing about it. And it seems like with the houses in Solar Crown that they want to add, you can fully furnish the entire thing. So the houses that you buy are basically you buy them unfurnished, and then you have to put down every piece of furniture individually. Now this could backfire really, really hard if they don't add enough furniture to the game. And if generally most houses will just look extremely empty no matter what you do. So we're gonna have to see how this is being done in the actual game. But generally speaking, once again, it seems like an improvement over what we had in the previous game. So although, I think it is fair to complain that pretty much all of this is stuff we had in the previous game, and they're still catching up with the contents that TDU 2 had on launch in 2011 on a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. At least they're improving it. That is probably the most amount of praise I have for everything that's been shown. But then there's other smaller stuff here. KT engine enhancements we'll go into in a little bit. Pagani returns. cool. But once again, Pagani was in TDU 2, so I'm just kind of whatever. Asian vehicles, they teased some of these in this like really, really long video. They didn't go into any like deeper models, they just showed off some brands. Generally speaking, Asian models were kind of underrepresented in TDU 2, so adding more is definitely a good thing. And the housing will also be supplemented with a real estate agency. Okay, that's how it worked in TDU 2, so not really impressed. Alongside it, we'll get even more quality of life features, even more bugs fixes, and even more optimization improvements. And this is like the big one here, the work in progress stuff. This is actually, I think, the more fundamental thing that they really should have focused on. Cross-region, car selling, 8-player groups, physical stores, customization, and more. So let's go into all of this one by one. So cross-region, I think, is definitely a good thing to focus on. This is something that I complained about in my last video. I cannot believe that all of the servers in this live servers online-only game are not just separated by platform, but also separated by region. Them actually fixing this is probably the first step to actually making the live service part of the game actually usable. Like, you can now play the online portion of your online-only game is basically what I said on Twitter. Yeah, cool that it's here. It's a shame that it took so long. Maybe actually making the game cross-platform next would be a cool move. I still think offline mode should be prioritized. I'll talk about this at the end of the video though. Let's just continue for now. Car selling is hilarious to me. So I'm gonna be honest, I only played the demo of TDU Solar Crown, and when I bought the game when it came out and I realized the servers are not working, I just refunded the game immediately. So I naturally assumed that selling cars was a thing you could do in this game. Because of course you would. Like, surely an open world racing game with focus on like car ownership and stuff, surely that will have the ability to sell cars, right? Apparently not. Apparently for a year now, you weren't able to sell any cars in this game. That blew my mind when I heard it. And the fact that they made this a big point in this like presentation here. Like right here. Look at this. Car selling. How are they basically showing this off as like a crazy new feature? I wouldn't even call it a feature. It's a function. Like Need for Speed 4 from 1999 had the ability to sell cars. This isn't really something you should really put into the forefront. This is like something that should just be added alongside a bunch of other improvements and an update from half a year ago, if I'm being honest. And yeah, 8-player groups is okay. Honestly, I think for a game that is supposedly next gen, 8-player groups is fairly small, but fine. Physical stores, certainly a good thing. But okay, once again, TDU 2 features. And that's kind of it. This is all you're getting for an entire year. Once again, I think some of this is good. I like that the features that they bring back from TDU 2 seem to be improved in some way. It's not just the same thing, it's better. Alongside this, in Season 4, you get access to the casino. I haven't really talked about the casino in my last video, so I'm just going to briefly bring it up here. It's nice that they're bringing it back. Once again, I don't think people played TDU 2 for the casino. It was just something nice they added on top of an already decent game. The problem is with Solar Crown's casino is that it only has slots. And the problem is that I think they completely missed the point of the casino. So the casino was a social space where you could play with friends and other players. That's what made it fun. It's that you could play poker with others or blackjack with others. You know, it was this like social space where you had special, interesting rewards on top of everything else. And additionally, the problem is that the casino isn't even available to everyone. So if you live in a country that has very, very strict gambling laws, you just flat out do not get access to it. And alongside it, you might not get access to certain items, certain cars, certain liveries, stickers, whatever. Apparently, they're working on some kind of solution for this. I don't think there is a solution for this, if I'm being honest. And then on top of that, you cannot actually pay out anything that you put into the casino. So all the money you basically put into, what for now, all you get is slots. All the money you put into there, you basically cannot pay out. So you get some kind of tokens back, so to say, and then those tokens you can then exchange for stuff you only get at the casino, which, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, most people played the casino as that either as a social thing or for the special items and the special crap that you got in the casino in TDU 2, so I don't think this is too bad. No one actually played the slots or whatever in TDU 2 to actually make bank, but still, it's just kind of like, you know, But now, I want to talk about something else I didn't really see other content creators dive into, and that's the graphics improvements that they also made like a very strong point of in their presentation. And for this, they actually provided some comparison images between what the game looks like now and what the game looks like currently in development and how it's supposed to look later on. So here we have a Season 4 screenshot of Solar Crown, and I gotta be honest, like one thing about Solar Crown that I never understood is why people complain about the graphics. I always thought Solar Crown looked fine. It wasn't the best looking racing game ever made, but for a AA mid-budget studio, it was fine. There was an insignificant amount of people that complained that the game looks like a mobile game, and I'm gonna be honest, every racing game that comes out these days gets labeled as a mobile game. That is just a universal complaint that gets thrown at every single racing game out there and should not be paid attention to. I always thought TDU Solar Crown looked okay. The main problem was the optimization and performance. So the reason why people might not consider TDU Solar Crown a good-looking game is because they aren't able to run the game on higher graphics settings. So they have to settle for medium to low settings to even get a somewhat playable, stable frame rate. And yeah, then the game does not look as good. So I think instead of actually improving the graphics of the game at the higher levels and you know, improving the actual underlying engine, just improving the optimization so that people are able to crank up their own graphics settings to higher settings would have probably done more than enough. All right, let's get back to the comparison. Once again, this is how the game looks right now, and this is how the game will look later. So at first glance, I thought like, hey, this seems to look a little better. But then I actually dug a little bit into what I'm looking at, and I realized that the improvements here are not crazy big. So I think the foliage looks a little better under the lighting, although this is very, very subjective. I think we're kind of losing this tropical vibe here. And this is something that I think is you're gonna come up way more as we look at these comparison screenshots. It's mainly actually a stylistic change and a change in lighting. So if we actually look at this again, let's look for example at the shadow resolution, okay? So the shadows look a little blurry, but it's okay. Once again, I think they look fine and you're not paying too much attention to shadows in a racing game anyways. And in the graphics improvement, I actually think they look somehow even more blurry. I don't know, like at the very best, if I'm being charitable, they look the same. At worst, they look even blurrier. And then if I look at some of the ambient occlusion, if I look at some of the roadside objects here, I also don't see much of an improvement. Yeah, I mean, you can maybe see the foliage a little better here than in here, so the details pop a little bit more. Once again, I think that has more to do with the lighting change in of itself. But in terms of ambient occlusion, I don't know, we can look at this a little bit more in other screenshots. I think it's kind of hard to tell here. Texture quality looks about the same. You can't really see it here. Let me actually move myself. Whoop. Okay, so look at the lower right corner here. The texture looks about the same. There's no improvement here whatsoever. So no improvement in texture quality. I don't know what else to say. And lastly, if we look at the reflection quality of the car, it also roughly looks about the same. I don't notice any improvements in reflections whatsoever. We're gonna see this a little bit more clearly later. But the thing that I see here that really bothers me is just the overall visual treatment of the game. And I think this is something they really messed up. So the original game looks fairly natural. So it has this tropical feeling as it should. You know, the foliage looks like very, very green. I think this looks fine. This looks like an Instagram filter to me. So if you look at some of the darker areas here, all of the lower blacks here, all of this is this pink magenta. You see this here? Like, especially in the corners, this gets really, really obvious. And everything, you know, that is enshrouded in a darker area has this like weird magenta tint to it. Even the trees here in the back. Whereas this looks more natural. It's just that the colors feel a little bit more natural overall. Now let's look at another comparison screenshot. This is during the sunset, and this is what the game looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. And I think in this screenshot we can actually see some definitive, what's the opposite of improvements? The game looks worse. I think the most obvious one is if we look at the grass here, if we look at the foliage, so you can clearly see that there's like a bunch of grass around this parking bench here. This grass is completely removed here. There's nothing here. It's all gone. So this is actually worse in that sense. Now, this might be one of the performance and optimization improvements If that is the case, okay. I'm not sure how much lowering that actually improves it. I think it is probably not an insignificant amount though. But I think if the point is to show off how much better your game looks, maybe showing off worse foliage coverage is probably not the play here. And then other than that, once again, I don't see any improvement in the ambient occlusion here. Like you can see that, you know, there's like some shadows here where the parking bench is like on the edges. Those are actually gone here. Once again, maybe it's the foliage kind of hiding it, but you can kind of see it here. It's all gone. Like it's just like, all the ambient occlusion is all gone. So that actually also looks worse in my opinion. And going back to the foliage a little bit, I'm gonna hide myself again, or I'm gonna like move myself again here a little bit. So you can clearly see that there's like some extra bushes here. Those disappear on the new screenshots. So there's like this very noticeable gap here now. Yeah, overall, definitely a downgrade in foliage here between these two screenshots. And this is also where I would say there's actually also a worse reflection quality, so you can kind of still see clearly the reflections on the car here. I'm not sure what it is reflecting, but nothing here, once again, on the car. It looks somehow less reflective, less smooth. It actually does not look better at all. And once again, in my opinion, the original screenshot looks overall better. You see more detail over all of the foliage here, whereas I think the sunset is so overblown here. You can see that the lens flare is completely destroying the image. The lens flare is also extremely low quality here. It looks very low resolution. It's a little bit more tame here, but the lens flare is so crazy that you have this weird cyan tint in the corner here. And it also just adds this weird fade over the entire image. Like the entire image here looks so washed out compared to this. I actually think this is way more visually appealing than this. Now here we have a rain scene. Now rain is obviously kind of tricky to get right, and I always thought the rain looked in this game. It looked okay. So once again, this is what the game looks like before, and this is what it looks, or what's supposed to look after. And I'm gonna be honest, this looks like a shitty reshade preset. I'm sorry, but that's just what this looks like. This is just a massive blue filter that has been slapped onto the game. Now, you might prefer this aesthetically speaking, and I think aesthetically speaking, it looks a little bit more visually interesting. But it's just a massive blue filter that's been slapped over the game. And once again, if we actually look at some of the details on the car, we can clearly see that there's some reflection on the windshield, or not the windshield, on the glass here. We can see some, you know, some of the rain on the car. It clearly looks wet. And if we look here, the reflection on the windshield is completely gone. Like there's just nothing here anymore. It doesn't reflect anything. And also the wetness of the car is gone. Like it looks oddly smooth. It's the only way I can describe it. It's just that the rain doesn't really pop as much anymore. It's probably to do with the filter, honestly. And yeah, once again, I would say there's also a worse ambient occlusion here. So we can see that the pot in the background here next to the stairs, there are some shadows here that actually make this feel a little bit more natural. Completely gone. It actually looks worse here. Like it's right up above me. It just looks weird. It looks more fake in the new version here. One thing I do notice is that the road is a little bit more reflective. So you can see that, you know, the wet spots on the road here isn't really reflecting anything. You can kind of tell that it's supposed to be reflecting some of the trees from up here. It is a little bit more pronounced here. You can kind of see this a little bit more clearly. The problem is just that the reflections are extremely low quality. Like the subsurface reflections here, I think it's called, and it's actually not what it's called probably. I'll put it here, is what I mean. The problem is that it just looks really low quality, and it just makes the reflections look actually worse, because the stuff that is reflected looks extremely pixelated here. And then one last comparison screenshot. I think this is kind of pointless to show off, because like at night screenshots obviously hide a lot of details, but here we have a screenshot at night. Once again, this is before, and this is after. Once again, I think the main thing to really point out here is just the visual, like the filter that's applied onto the game now. This looks perfectly fine. It looks natural. This is what night looks like. It's maybe not super dark. It's not as dark as it should be, but it makes sense for a game where you obviously want to see stuff. And then on the new screenshots, you have this really, this is probably the worst example of the filters that they slapped onto the game. So you can see that this is a weird cyan tint in the middle. And then on the sides, you have this weird purple color in the darker, shadowy areas. It just doesn't look natural at all to me, especially if you look at the lights of the car. They have also changed color. So this looks like, you know, the taillights of a car are supposed to look. And here they have this like weird, bright red color now. This doesn't look better, in my opinion. It just looks different, and in my opinion, at least, not in a good way. It just looks, once again, like an Instagram filter that's been slapped onto the game. And I failed to see any actual improvements in any aspects I've brought up so far, like shadow quality, reflection quality, ambient occlusion. I fail to see any improvements in those areas. It's just filters that have been slapped on, and once again, at worst, we see that the ambient occlusion is worse. The foliage has been drastically reduced. So to call any of this a graphical upgrade would be a massive overstatement, and this is something I haven't really seen anyone really dive into. Once again, if I'm going to be charitable, this is the developers showing this off. I know this is a work, and those are all work in progress screenshots, is what it said in the bottom. Before anyone comments, someone's probably gonna comment it anyways because they don't bother to watch the video. Yes, this is work in progress. Me pointing this out might even help them just kind of like dial things in a little bit more. Who knows? But if this is like, this is just not something they should show off. If it actually looks worse, if you actually like look into the finer details and it looks worse than the actual comparison screenshots you provided, it just doesn't make your game look any better. And yeah, that's pretty much it for TDU Solar Crown. Now, what do I think overall? Will this save the game? Will this not save the game? In my opinion, it's just too little too late. So we have to consider that by the time houses come out in, it says here, July 2026, GTA 6 will have come out, okay? We'll get GTA 6 before houses in Solar Crown. And not only that, Forza Horizon 6 will probably also be on the horizon, pun not intended. So it will probably be announced at that point, and it will probably also have shown off some gameplay up to that point already as well. And I do expect Horizon 6 to be at least somewhat of an improvement over Horizon 5 on like a basic level, because Horizon 5 still had to work with, on the Xbox One consoles, the 8th generation. Whereas I assume Forza Horizon 6 will probably be entirely on the new Xbox consoles, and I at least hope that with that, there are some underlying improvements that actually make the game feel less like a reskin of Horizon 2 and 3. Whether that will actually be the case remains to be seen, obviously. But I think at this point, people are busy with GTA 6. People will be looking more towards Horizon 6. And I think at that point, TDU Solar Crown will just be forgotten. The game is currently already struggling. So I don't expect this to be any better 1 year from now at all. And all of this ultimately makes me think that TDU Solar Crown just feels like a massive waste of effort to me. It just feels like they're making all of these improvements for a player base that will not exist anymore 1 year down the line. Especially because if we look at this once again, there's not a single mention of the offline mode. Now, I know I bitched about this in my last video, and I keep people, I see people complaining that I care about this so much. I care about this because I want to preserve the game that you enjoy playing right now. Like, I care more about game preservation than anything else, like about the game getting better. Because what's the point of the game getting better in any way if it's not preserved? If in 1 or 2 years from now you will have none of it. Once again, like I know that they promised the offline mode will come at the end of the life cycle, but there are certain problems with this that I don't think people really realize. So every single feature that they add now, they have to make work retroactively with the offline mode. So effectively, what this means is the more they add, the more work they will have later on when they want to add the offline mode. Whereas now, if they make the offline mode now, everything they add later on, they can already make work with the offline mode. Whereas basically what they're doing now, since they're adding more features, more content, then at the end of it all, you have this massive feature set of things that all has to work with the offline mode. The reason why I know this is because I've closely followed the Crew Unlimited project, and basically in that project they had to go in and make every single feature work individually with the offline mode. So in their update videos, they always showed off like, hey, we made this work offline, we made this small thing work offline, you can do this in the offline mode now. And this is the process they will have to go through as well. They have to now, if in like 1 or 2 years from now, if they want to actually make the offline mode, they have to go through every single thing they edit individually and make it work for the offline mode. Whereas if they make the offline mode now, they will actually save themselves the hassle later on. And I also think that preserving the game should be the first priority, you know? Like, I'm actually advocating for this for, like, all the people that are currently playing the game and enjoying it. What the fuck does any of that matter if the game will just cease to function later on? And once again, I do not trust them if they say they're gonna, do this at the end of the live service. Because what's important to understand here is that this is a promise from the developers, not the publishers. And the publishers get to decide how much longer this game will get supported. It is entirely plausible that at any point, Nacon, the publisher, will look at the numbers and say, you know what, this isn't worth it anymore, we just want to cut our losses now, and then they're just gonna move on, and everyone who's bought the game, everyone who's playing the game is gonna be left without an offline mode. So all the time and all the money you invested into this game will be gone. So I think prioritizing the offline mode right now should be the absolute priority in case that the publisher cuts the support. That should be the 100% number one priority here, and it is just not. We don't see a single mention of the offline mode in this entire image here, and it hasn't been brought up in this entire video here either. So I think this just kind of speaks volumes on the the priorities that they're setting here. And I think this just is really upsetting, because the thing is, I don't actually care if this game is good or not. Like, I've had like a few small comments who said like, oh, I don't care about this game getting preserved, it sucks anyways. I don't care if the game sucks anyways. I don't care what I think about the game. I don't care what you think about the game. At the end of the day, people bought this, people spent time on this, and they have the right to keep it, right? Like, regardless what game it is, I don't care if it's good or bad or whatever. I don't care what I think about it. At the end of the day, it deserves to be preserved, because people should have the right to keep their purchases. This should be the absolute number one priority. And this is why I care about it so much, and this is why I don't care about any of this crap here, as long as we get an offline mode. It should be the absolute most basic, most important thing. So yeah, with all that being said, I think TDU Solar Crown remains a waste of effort. I think I don't know who all of this is for. Once again, I don't expect in a year from now this is going to be relevant anymore. I don't think anyone is really going to be playing this anymore. Regardless, I hope that the game turns around. I hope, that somehow some good comes out of this. I wish the developers the best, but I just really think that the people who are calling the shots and who are making all the decisions have it all wrong, and they're making all the wrong decisions. But yeah, didn't expect to talk about TDU Solar Crown so closely to my last video once again. I will probably not talk about this for a while now, unless there's some major update once again. But I hope this was informative, especially me talking about the graphics improvements. I haven't really seen anyone bring all of this up. So I hope this was informative. If you thought so, give the video a like, and subscribe for more racing game slop content. Anyway, until next time, guys, take care, take it easy, and peace. See you guys.